When did someone go way too far for revenge? So there was this guy, Anthony, in my town who was obnoxious and a jerk. He constantly had something rude to say to people, would flaunt his wealth and make people feel inferior. Most of us learned to ignore him, but one day, he crossed the line with the wrong person. His quiet, mild-mannered neighbor, Dan. Anthony and Dan shared a property line, and Anthony decided he didn't like a tree on Dan's side. Its branches leaned over into Anthony's yard, and instead of talking it out, Anthony hired someone to chop the entire tree down. When Dan came home to find his favorite tree gone, he was devastated. To make things worse, Anthony smirked and said, "It's just a tree, get over it." Dan didn't argue. He just nodded and walked away. In the weeks that followed, strange things started happening to Anthony's yard. His once green grass turned yellow in patches that spelled out some not-so-nice words about him. Then, the trees on Anthony's side of the fence began to wither, and eventually, even his prized rose bushes followed. Anthony was frantic, spending hundreds on gardeners and pest control, but nothing worked. As Anthony's frustration grew, he began lashing out at everyone, from his hired help to his own family. One night, after a particularly loud rant, Dan calmly leaned over the fence and said, "Maybe it's karma, you know, for the tree." That was all. Anthony completely lost it, threatening to call the cops and make a scene, but Dan just smiled and walked back inside. Anthony never discovered what really happened, but we suspect that Dan used some natural herbicide.